Latin word, of course, that comes from about the 14th century that originally meant a guardian deity, or kind of like an angel on your shoulder that would watch over and protect you. This was the original meaning of the word, and if somebody did something well or was especially talented in an area, that meant that their deity was watching over them well, and that the deity was talented in influencing their spirit in this way. And it wasn't until the 1640s when the word genius became to have the connotation of the individual's talent or special skills or intellect. I can recall a woman in the hospital, actually many of them who were like this, but one in particular, who joked around that her guardian angel had stepped away. She said that she felt that God was either listening to his iPod too loudly or had completely left the building, and that her guardian angel had gone out for a drink and forgotten to come back. She said she just hoped that when it decided to come back, that it would bring her one. Well, this is not in any way atypical that sometimes we feel like we can't find God, or that we've somehow been abandoned by our guardian angel, or whatever it is that we believe that watches over us and gives us protection. Sometimes in a deep way we feel existentially alone. And in those moments, for whatever reason, we as human beings cannot leave things alone. We can't decide that we're going to change our methods of search. Instead, we decide we have to create. And so we set forth to create images of God and different representations of God, right? We look for God in temples and in churches and in caves and in monuments made by human hands and in nature. And indeed, God is in all of these places, but our method in searching for God often leaves us feeling empty because we worship something that isn't meant to be worshipped. It's merely a representation. I can recall one time I went with my father-in-law to his Jodo Shinshu temple in Tokyo, and I was amazed by the words of the priest. I thought it was great. He pointed to the statue of Amida, and he says, "Do you see this statue?" He says, "Do not pray to it, because if you pray to it, nothing is going to happen." He said, "It's a hunk of metal. But this statue is a representation, a symbol, something to remind us to have love and compassion and respect, empathy for our fellow human beings." He said, that is the purpose that this serves, but don't worship it for itself. Well, Paul comes upon the people of Athens at the Areopagus, and he's telling them that as I was wandering through your city, I found a monument, which tells me that you folks are quite religious. Out of all of these deities that you have, the whole pantheon of gods, I noticed you even had an altar made, dedicated to the unknown God. Just so that you don't miss anything, just so you don't accidentally leave something out. God, we don't know who you are, or where you are, or why you don't listen to us, or why you often seem to have nothing to do with us whatsoever, but just in case we're missing something here, we're going to erect an altar to an unknown God and make sure that we cover all of our bases. Well, we still have that same loneliness today that the people of Athens must have had in having to erect an altar to a God that they had no idea about. Obviously no experience, no interaction, no relationship with this God. It was just what we'll call a just-in-case altar. We hear the words of Jesus here in John 14, and they sound like a commandment, as they are, but they also sound almost condemning. Almost like Jesus is pointing his fingers when he's talking to his disciples. And he's saying, if you love me, you will obey my commandments. Okay? we hear this as some representation of a God who is a hard you-know-what, and kind of always pointing the finger at people and making sure that people do everything exactly right. So we tend to think that when God seems far away, that we've done something wrong. Somehow we have alienated God or our fellow human beings in a way that God should just get fed up with us and leave us. And this is just a natural human reaction. We get this idea that that's how the universe works. That as long as we're good with God, then God is good with us. And so when we read Jesus' words, we can't help but hear that in the same voice, in the same vein, and saying, if you do what I say, I'm going to be with you. I will be in God, God will be in me, I will be in you, etc., and everything's going to be okay. So we automatically assume that the converse is true. If you don't listen to me, I'm out of here, and I'm taking God with me. And guess what? You're going to be all alone. So you better listen up. I don't like that. That doesn't sound like Jesus to me. What if we were to take this and kind of scrape away our preconceived notions about God and hear this a different way? What if we heard Jesus saying, since you love me, I know you are going to do what I have taught you. I know you are going to do the example that I have set for you in the way that I have lived my life. I know. I already know you love me. And I know that because you love me, you can't help but do these things, knowing that this is the way that I have taught you. And so by living that way, here's what's going to happen. Not a conditional. Since you are going to do these things, here's what's going to happen. I'm not going anywhere. I'm always, always going to be with you. I will always be with God. God will always be with you, as will I be with you. And you will sense the presence of God going with you wherever you go. In whatever situation that you have, you will not feel like a lonely orphan. You will not feel left behind, because God will go with you. Now, I don't know about you, but to me that sounds a lot more Jesus-like. See, Jesus didn't go around judging people, right? He didn't go around condemning people. He didn't go around putting people down or telling them, if you mess with me, you're going downstairs. He didn't do that. That's the way that we have read the Bible. Those are our words being superimposed on the words of Jesus to make him sound like this judging, condemning individual who represents a maniacal God who just can't wait to pull the lever and open up the floor and let us drop. But that's not how God works. That is not how Jesus works. So we look at this in a new light. I will not leave you orphaned. I am coming to you. In a little while, the world will no longer see me, but you will see me, because you will do what I have done. You will live out my example. You will live by the way that I have taught you. Because I live, you also will live. On that day, you will know that I am in God, and you in me, and I in you. They who have my commandments and keep them are those who love me. And I know that that describes you. Therefore, this is how it's going to be. You will all be loved by God, and I will love you and reveal myself to you. If this understanding then is how God is, if this is who Jesus is and was and the God that he describes, then regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the diagnosis, regardless of the situation, regardless of how alone we feel at any given time, we can take heart in knowing that in every touch, in every I love you, in every act of kindness, just merely for the sake of compassion, that there we will find God manifest in the sacred space between us, within us, without us, above us, and around us. We will find God wherever we go. May God bless all of you on that search. Amen. Please